this is your reputation, as they say, is not what you say about yourself, is what others say about you when you're not in the room.
Sometimes it may be that you're best kept secret in your county or your town, or people kind of see your vans or know your brand but don't know what that means.
Who is your ideal audience? Who's going to buy from you, or who is going to want to work with you?
I want a PR, but I don't want to do it the way it was done 10 years ago. I want to be right up to date and relevant and resonant to today's customers.
When I sit down with a client or a prospect, I want to know their 3-year plan, their 5-year plan, their 10-year plan, because that will help me decide on the strategy.
I understand that Coke are one of the biggest advertisers, and you think, why do they need to do it? Everyone knows
Why
Coke.
do they still do it?
Welcome back to another episode of Success is a System. I'm really excited today to be joined by Alison Shadrack, who is a PR expert, PR guru, and has been doing PR for a long time. And I was really excited for two reasons. One, I've recently parted ways with my PR company, and I kind of want to talk about why that was a little bit, and what I expect, or what we should or could expect from PR, how that varies from big business to small business to corporations. And really getting into what you can do to make your business better known and how to build your brand, because Alison is an expert in building brands as well. We met at the Gherking at one of Joe Valente's events, and I was compelled at them with some of the Q&A you were doing, and so really excited. Thank you and welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Thanks for inviting me.
No, it's really, as I say, the timing is perfect. So first, the big question, I guess, is people think sort of web schmed, PR, what am I getting for it? So from the expert, what is PR?
Okay, what is PR? So PR, for me, works in there's three aspects to it. So firstly, it's around creating awareness, creating attention. So awareness and attention are the two pillars, really, to building your brand, excuse me. If people don't know you exist, they can't work with you, they can't buy from you, they can't buy your product or service. So that is critical. The attention and the awareness of your brand, or your business, your product, your service, whatever it is that you're looking to promote, is the first step. The second step is around education. So we want people to love your product. We want to build those raving fans, so that more people then jump on board and start buying your product or working with you. So, that is essential to, if you're educating them. And what I mean by that, it depends on your brand, but it's really around, what can you share with them about your product or your service? If you're an expert in your field, that means thought leadership articles. You're getting across your expertise, and you're giving great advice to your ideal audience. If it's a product, it's about enabling people to sample the product and making sure that they're then, sharing the love and talking about it, be it online or, through testimonials. With the press, it's getting the journalists to understand who you are and what you do, so they can talk about you and spread the word as well. And again, if you've got a product, that means getting a sample in front of them. So you're not only creating awareness and attention and, building loyal fans or raving fans, but then for me, the long-term aspect is all around your reputation. So you want to build that trust for the longevity of your brand or your business. And so again, this is your reputation, as they say, is not what you say about yourself, is what others say about you when you're not in the room. And, that comes over time. That doesn't happen instantly.
But interesting you say that, because it took me back to a couple of weeks ago with one of the companies I mentor, and it's second generation. And they've got like 40 years of experience of happy customers, raving fans, as you say. I love that terminology, because that makes you just not create awareness, but have people who love you and are your fans. But so sometimes it is about maybe creating that awareness. And I think sometimes it may be that you're best kept secret in your county or your town, or people kind of see your vans or know your brand but don't know what that means. So there's a lot to it in that sense, isn't there? Where do you start?
Where do you start? Okay, so I hear this a lot about people being the best kept secret in their industry, especially with the sort of the one man or one woman bands who are experts in their field. But they kind of often sit back and wait to be discovered. So they wait for awards to land in their
Which
lap,
doesn't happen,
right? They don't put themselves forward. They wait for journalists to contact them to get those juicy, interviews in the trade magazines. Or they'll wait for, almost like they're waiting for customers to knock on their door.
And yet my experience or kind of vision view is that journalists only come knocking when you've done something really bad. They don't come to you for the good often.
Absolutely. Depending again what sector you're in, but they definitely want to hear about you, but they're just really time poor. So, just as you have to go out and sell your product, you need to sell yourself too. You need to sell your brand. And what I mean by selling is really promoting, making sure that people know who you are, what you do, and giving them the opportunity to experience, buying from you or working with you. So,
and one of the things I loved when we first met, but also in looking at your profile since, is that you do seem to be particularly expert in working with entrepreneurs and small businesses. And the reason that resonates really closely to me is, and I guess the question I'm building up to is the difference between big business PR and small business PR, but also, and you said the one-man band. So Chris and I have been working a lot, sort of trying to lobby government, councils and businesses on the fact that there's 5.6 million businesses in the UK. 74%, 4.4 million of them are no employees. They are one-man businesses or one-woman businesses. And so they really are on their own. They haven't got a team to push them out. They perhaps are the expert in their field, but don't know how to market, how to PR, the finance, the building the winning teams, the recruiting the right people, and so on. And again, to me, PR is attracting the right employees as well. So you can go beyond that. Absolutely. So I love the fact that you champion, particularly in the sort of entrepreneurial sector. And as an entrepreneur and someone who's worked with and in and built big businesses and tiny businesses, how do you need to look at PR differently? And how do you, as an expert, see PR differently in the different sizes or scales of business?
Yeah, absolutely. I will answer your question, but I wanted to say on that point about, small companies. I don't know if you saw it recently, but Sam Altman was talking about, there could be the first billion or trillion company with a one person company. It's going to happen with the, advance of AI, and we can perhaps talk about that later on. But I think it's interesting that companies may ultimately become smaller and smaller.
But not necessarily be held back by that.
No, exactly. And so, going back to, small businesses, how can they do their own PR? It really is around going back to Business 101. Who is your ideal audience? Who's going to buy from you, or who is going to want to work with you? And then really figuring out, okay, but what are they watching, be it on TV or on the internet? What are they listening to? Now that could be, again, TV, radio, podcasts. What are they reading? So newspapers, magazines, consumer magazines, business magazines, trade publications, so really understanding. If you don't know, ask them, do a simple poll, call a few, just do a bit of research yourself to find out, and where are they showing up? So are they going to events? What type of events? So again, the whole PR thing for me is really everything that's revolving around your business and around your audience. Where are they showing up, and how do you then get yourself in front of them? So do you need to be sharing your top tips in the magazines and sharing your advice? do you want to get a profile piece, a Q&A or interview, And again, if you're thinking, well, why would they want me? Well, you need to put yourself forward for it, because if they don't know you exist, they're not going to ask you for that interview. And, we can get on about how to do that. But, think about, can you speak at some events that would, again, get you in front of that audience? Can you appear as a guest on a podcast like today? Or can you set up your own podcast? Would that make more sense? And you invite people onto your show. So, it's again really drilling in on, how do I get in front of my audience? How do I get them to know me?
And as you're saying that, it's obviously very similar into the targeting of consumers and where do they commune? Where, are they online because they're Star Trek fans and they might want to buy their full outfits or something? Or are they in a geography where it's a local store and they're supplying to quite a small geographic region? But the interesting thing, and as you were saying that, I was thinking that almost one step before that, for a lot of small businesses that I talk to or mentor, when you say, oh, who's your customer? They say, well, everybody. And you sort of, the first thing is to get them to, in effect, build some kind of profile. Even if they're supplying or trying to attract 3 different profiles, have they thought about them? And I remember with one of the UK's largest retailers, they did this whole program on what they called empty nesters. That say, like myself and my wife, the children have left home, sort of thing. So we officially are empty nesters. And they had this profile that therefore they might be retired but still active, and they perhaps got a bit more money because the kids have left, so they're a bit more. So anyway, all this was based on the fact that 27% of their customers were empty nesters. So you think it's very logical. It's a big chunk. But 24% were young, free and singles. And they were the other end of the sort of age scale with a completely different consumption approach and everything else. So sometimes I think the start for me, and I'm asking the question rather than making a statement, but does it need to be about doing a little bit of an exercise around who is your target customer or customers, and in order to then know what they're reading, what they're watching, what they're listening to, and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. But that again for me is like business 101. When you're starting your business, it's really getting clear on who is your ideal audience.
So if we were to start to work together, or imagine I'm a typical customer, and there probably isn't a typical client that you have because everyone's so different. But what would be the where do I start with PR? If I've never done it before, let's say I'm an amazing plumber or a good mentor or a dentist that everybody loves, but I've never done this PR thing before, and I kind of feel that I'm getting a bit more competition in my area, and I want to start to kind of benefit from that. I've heard people say it can really scale a business. How do you start? Where do you start?
Okay, so doing it yourself or working with?
Well, either or both, I guess, because some people might be in the stage of, I want PR, but I'll do it myself because I can't afford it or don't yet see the value in it.
I totally much prefer that people do that, because you can do your own PR. And I will tell people that time again. This is something you can do in-house, providing you've got the time to do it. It does take a little bit of time, but
pays dividends.
Where there's a will, there's a way, right? So really, I would say the first thing, let's take a plumber, for example. So they could get in touch with the local newspapers or with a local magazine. The only trouble with local magazines is sometimes they want payment.
It's all about advertising.
And this is a good way to explain excuse me, the difference between advertising and PR. So advertising is you're paying for the space, and you can write pretty much whatever you want within reason, right? But it's your message, it's your branding. You own that space and you can fill it. And if it's radio, again, likewise with what you say, you buy the time. Whereas PR is what we like to say earned editorial. So it's you're not paying for the journalist to write about you. It's free. And this is what builds the credibility over time. It's because the journalist is almost endorsing. It's not a complete endorsement, but they're writing about you for free. Okay.
And I think most consumers kind of get that if it's an advert, I would say that. If it's an editorial, then I'm not in control of it. Therefore, it's somehow more real. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, because they could write anything.
Yeah,
they
good, bad,
could
or
write.
ugly.
Yeah, exactly. And so coming back to the plumber, it's really, okay, what's newsworthy? What's going on in your company? Are you hiring staff? Are you working on a bigger new project that would be of interest to, someone in, the local community? So what are the newsworthy stories around your business? Now that's one aspect. The other could be, okay, can you share some great tips? Yeah. So winter is coming or summer is coming. There's always a time
Don't have frozen pipes.
Right, exactly. What do people need to know? Can you be helpful in sharing your advice? Chances are pipes are still going to burst at some point, for one person or another, and you're still going to have lots of business. So don't be afraid of sharing, great advice to them. Yeah. You want to be seen as very helpful, and also what you're talking about, right? So can you get those tips into, again, the local press? I say local because obviously, unless you're a national, plumbing company, you're not going to want to speak to people, in a different region. And,
having done a bit of my own PR for a long time, having had PR consultants or companies working with me, to what degree, if you were the radio station, the TV station, the magazine, do they prefer to work through a PR company? Because I definitely got the feeling, certainly on television and newspapers, that they almost don't want to speak direct to what they might call the talent or the panels. Yeah. They'd rather go through a company. So are you restricted if you do it yourself at all?
Not necessarily.
How does the dynamic work?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Not necessarily. You can go direct, but ultimately they're going to check you out because what they want is someone reliable and an authority on that chosen subject, whatever you're going to speak about, or whatever the news of the day is that they're inviting experts to talk about. They need to make sure that this is a credible person.
You're not going to embarrass them on their...
Right, that they have not asked this expert to come in and they don't know what to say or they fluff it up, So they generally go through PR agencies because they've got a good relationship with them. And so if the PR agency is...
do the work.
Yeah, well, we're only going to put forward people that we know will be an outstanding guest. Yeah. Right. We're not going to put someone and then it's going to backfire on us and then we look silly. So that's why that happens. But that's not to say you can't go direct. So you can get in touch with the TV and radio producers. And if you've got, so this is important, they need some evidence that you are who you say in the sense of your digital footprint. So when they Google you online, that they can see that you've spoken at other events, that you have provided, good content elsewhere. Yeah. So, it's very unlikely you'll get onto TV if you haven't done some of the groundwork first, right? You need to have a strong...
And I think that's... recently, for instance, we did a razzle reel, which, you may have a different term for it. Of course, it is like 90 seconds, 2 minutes, and it shows a bit of public speaking, a bit of mentoring, some TV, some radio, some publication, and it's just a fast kind of moving, but it's like a visual biography or CV, if you like, because I guess some people, I don't know what to put. How long should it be? Is there an optimum? Should it be visual or should it be written? Do you have a feeling as to what that initial contact with a potential route to market, if you like, for your PR would be as a business?
Again, I think it depends on who your audience is. What do you want to get out of the PR? How is it going to help you? So what's your strategy in terms of the business? Do you want to be speaking on stage because that audience will, result in potentially clients, customers, etc.? Do you want to write a best-selling book? Do you want to be on TV or radio? What's the end goal? And for some of our clients, it's building the brand.
And what don't you want to talk about, I guess, as well?
Well, don't you want to talk about? Yeah, absolutely. But for some of our clients, it's really, they're looking for that exit. And so they want to be known by certain potential buyers, in say 5 years' time. Now, for some, that could be a private equity company. It could be, VC, but it could be another bigger company in that sector. So again, if you think about, where do you want to be in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, even longer, then you can work back, okay, then I can figure out how to get there.
And that's that intrigues me in terms of, I'd always thought of PR as kind of like now, kind of this week, and so on. And yet I spend my time teaching people how to have a 3-year plan and building that journey out and starting with the end in mind, and the fact that all the old cliches of a 1,000-mile journey starts with a single step. So how long? I mean, do you build a 3-year strategy with somebody, or how should a business approach that in terms of timescale, strategy, stepping stones, if you like? I hope you're enjoying this episode of Success is a System. Come back every fortnight to hear tips, tricks, and systems to make you the best business person you can be. Visit my website, mikegreene.co.uk, for information on my mentorship, and follow on all my socials for bite-sized pieces of advice. Thanks very much. Now let's jump back into this week's episode.
Yeah, I mean, we work on 3-month plans, 6-month plans, 12-month plans. But when I sit down with a client or a prospect, I want to know their 3-year plan, their 5-year plan, their 10-year plan, because, that will help me decide on the strategy, the shorter term strategy and planning. And so, yes, it's a similar system. We work backwards. And it's a bit like, for me, PR is very much a marathon, not a sprint. It's a long-term investment. It's absolutely not a short-term. I think, if you need to get sales, if you need to get money in quickly and you need to sell, then you need to sell, and you need to focus on that selling activity. And that's very different from PR. So if you need to get bums on seats at an event, you need to have a very different strategy to PR.
No, I get that. And in that vein, that is something that my mind often goes to, that, if I look at, and I mentioned earlier, if I look at digital marketing, or not even digital marketing, content, I know and have evidenced continuously that for every £1 I spend on that, I can get £4 return. Now, that may be just for my product, my sector, my profile, and so on. Yeah. But as you say, PR is kind of less tangible, and it's certainly longer term. How do I, in my head, go to sleep at night knowing that this £1 I've put into digital marketing is going to get me 4, but I still need to put £3, £5, whatever per pound into PR because I need that longer term? How, if someone's saying to you, I've got this much to spend, Alison, and I've got to do the PR and the digital marketing, if you like, or digital presence or footprint there, what would you say to them?
Good question. It's a case-by-case scenario, but basically I think it's a bit like short-term, looking after your finances. What do you need now to spend, and what can you save to put away to create that cumulative, effect. And so for me, the whole PR over time will yield so much more that is very hard to quantify at an early stage. If you think about all the big guys, going back to small business PR and corporate PR, why do all the corporates do it? Why do all the big guys do it? There must be a reason. Right?
Yeah.
It's not like...
I understand that Coke are one of the biggest advertisers, and you think, why do they need to do it? Everyone knows.
Why
Coke,
do they still do it? And it's to remind their customers why that they're right to buy that product, that they're right to be a loyal raving fan. So they often are doing the PR and advertising for their existing fans existing clients, as opposed to getting new ones.
Yeah.
And you can be in business for many years and maybe you've built up a really excellent reputation, but then someone goes and says something, could be a CEO, could be somebody, an employee has gone rogue, and bad news comes out. And that ultimately affects their reputation.
Yeah.
And we know that businesses have gone, down a sort of rabbit hole, and they've gone out of business through something that somebody's done, and their reputation is because their reputation is suddenly gone from good to bad,
or they didn't have a solid reputation to lean back on, or
potentially. But it just goes to show that people don't want to buy products or be associated with disreputable companies.
No, I get that. And I guess, as you were saying that, it was very, it made it very clear to me. But I was also thinking, is part of the challenge then for PR that we live in this instant gratification world, and I want to see immediate returns.
Yeah.
But really, we should be investing for the longer term and for the more solid foundation on which to build, I guess.
I think so. And I think that companies that do invest in PR will be around long term, as opposed to those who may do very well short term. But if they don't have a solid foundation, there's the potential for them to fall over at some point. So, you can't, it's not the same for all companies. Many companies have done very well and have not done PR. But, it's
well, and I guess for me, as you say that, I think about some of the sort of second or third generation businesses that I work with. The PR definitely becomes more important at an intergenerational transition, because if a business hasn't got solid PR for the business or the brand, and you get a change, I mean, it might even be a change of a manager or a CEO or an MD, but if you get a change of a person and so much of what that business stood for was centered around an individual, it's harder to transition it successfully, and it can be at risk, I guess.
Absolutely. And let's talk about Richard Branson, right? He's a massive advocate of PR. He'll say, if I had $1 left, I would spend it on PR. It's critical, and it's infinitely more valuable than advertising. And he's done both. The Virgin Group have done plenty of advertising, but he's a king of PR. All the publicity he's done over the years to create that awareness and attention. It's phenomenal.
And you were talking, I mean, in everything, I guess, earlier, when you were talking about vanity PR versus sanity PR, and I guess there's good and there's bad in everything, but how do I know the difference? What is the difference between vanity and sanity PR, for instance?
So vanity PR are the big names. So Sky News, BBC, etc., Forbes, or for, those in beauty, it could be Vogue or, Elle. So it's the big name titles that everybody knows. And then those are great because if you can say as featured in, you can put those on your website and it looks good because people recognize them. Whereas the sanity PR, that's much less glamorous. It may not be a household name, but that could be exactly where your ideal audience are hanging out. Going back to the plumbers, it could be Plumber's World, something, it's not something my mum would know.
Yeah.
But, my mum doesn't need, potentially that plumber's service. So it's.
And I guess as you were saying that, it really hit home to me earlier in that sometimes we can think the best PR is because loads of people see it. But if we're like scattergunning, if you like, but not catching anything, that might be less valuable than a few targeted people seeing it who are going to be relevant to us. And it reminded me when you were saying that earlier, that the saying that the fox that chases two rabbits starves kind of thing. So focus is often better than broad. But I guess there's a place for both, because it's not a case of one's bad and one's good. They have a place.
No, absolutely. Both are great. And, when we're working with clients, we'll look for a mix of the two. Regardless of what sector they're in, we try to get the sanity pieces because we know they work. But, we want to sort of stroke the ego. And I say that in the nicest possible way, because, if you're doing PR, it is around ego. It is around, making sure people know who you are. But that, again, hopefully then builds to other things.
Yeah.
And this is, again, the point about PR is when you're doing these activities, you never actually know where it might lead. So we're very proactive in the steps we take.
Yeah.
We're very focused and articulate in terms of the key messages. So what do we want to say about our clients and where? So we can plan all of that. But then it depends on who's listening, who's watching, and how are they going to respond. So if you've got a product, potentially a stockist or a distributor is listening or reading that article and says, we'd love to find out more about this product and potentially, have them in our store, or we want to distribute them overseas, for example. It could be that, us, an event manager is listening or reading, and they would love to have you speak at their next event. So do you see what I mean? These doors can open for you, but if they hadn't seen that article about you, they wouldn't have known
and definitely
to get in touch.
I've experienced a lot over the years of business or interest coming from somewhere that you really didn't expect it to, because someone was at an event or saw something that you thought was kind of broad or bland, but targeted at the right time for someone who was in the right place at that right time.
Yeah, exactly. And so, so again, the whole PR thing is making sure that in whatever way whatever activities you do, just make sure you're being proactive in getting out there, just not being quiet in your office, and waiting for things to come to you.
And does it take a certain personality? I mean, I've seen people of all behavioral types build amazing businesses, but some people don't like to be in front of the camera or the media. They'd rather be like directing from behind the scenes. What if you're the sort of person who thinks, I just don't like PR? Should you put someone else forward, or should you build it? What would you do if you came across a business or a client that wanted good PR for to build their brand or to build their business, but didn't want to be involved in that particularly?
Absolutely. And there's plenty of ways to do that too. So it's not just for extroverts. So people think, you've got to be an extrovert to be in front of the camera or speak on stage. And yes, I mean, obviously they'll probably relish those opportunities, the extroverts. But the more introverted types, there's lots of, coming back to the thought leaders, they can write the thought leadership articles. They can write a book. They can, if it's in their comfort zone, potentially be on a podcast. So you're not necessarily, not always in front of the camera, could just be purely audio. So there are things you can do to stay in your comfort zone. Yeah. But, we like to encourage people to step. It doesn't hurt to try things outside of your comfort zone either. But, if you are the entrepreneur, him or herself, it's helpful to be the face of the brand, I would say. most of the time we like to promote the entrepreneur.
And do you therefore find the ways to promote that person that's relative to their behavior almost? Because I guess you can leverage it differently depending on the type of person you've got.
Yeah, definitely. Because some love to speak and some don't. And some love to write and some don't. And we can do a lot of the writing for our clients. That's something we can do, but we can't do the speaking. We can't speak on their behalf. And unless we're sort of talking to a journalist, in which case we can relay, things about the client, but we can't physically speak for them.
Which brings me on to, because as you were saying there, I was conscious of some of the stuff that we've been looking at lately with avatars, where the voice of a person is captured, the visual features of the person is captured, and suddenly online or in content, they are speaking, but it's not them. It's their avatar with their voice that's a replication of their voice with AI. So it brings me on to the question of what's the future of PR? Is AI affecting that positively, negatively? If we want to be ahead of the game and we're a new business thinking, I want a PR, but I don't want to do it the way it was done 10 years ago. I want to be right up to date and relevant and resonant to today's customers.
Yeah.
Where's PR going?
Yeah, I love that. I'm so excited about AI. I like to think it's for good. I know there potentially are going to be drawbacks with it. But for the most part, I think this is something that a lot of introverted people might jump on board with, as you said, to have your own avatar and be able to get your voice out there, but not necessarily have to show up in person, is incredibly exciting. And I know some companies are already doing that and doing it really, really well. And not to mention, we can then talk to potential clients in other countries. So you can, again, quite quickly, potentially target many other...
In different languages,
languages, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so expanding your market quite quickly. So again, I see this happening.
Maybe I can speak languages now that I can.
Exactly. So there's huge potential there. And I think AI in the PR world is incredibly exciting. I'm, all for using as much AI as possible. But I think, there has to be a huge amount of checking, of making sure that, what is coming out from ChatGPT, that if you're going to put that in front of a client, or, if you're if you're using it to help you draft a press release, for example, always sparking ideas, but then you have to really sense check it and just, is this right for this
and just yesterday,
client,
we'd done some research and it was just factually wrong. I mean, and getting the names of children of someone wrong, or getting their background wrong, and that's just like, oh dear. So it does need to be taken on the basis it's at a prototype stage. It will get better, but you shouldn't sort of jump out of a traditional way completely. It's a case of test the water, absolutely, evolve it as part of the plan rather than the whole plan, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a bit like I kind of sort of think if you have a junior working in your team, okay, they may run off and do some research on the internet and come back and kind of cobble it together. But then you need someone else in the team to go through it, right? And double check, does this make sense? Is this correct? So it's...
And I'm conscious how quickly time goes. We've been talking away, but what are the sort of three... If you could only give someone 3 tips that will work for them, or that they should really be aware of, the positives of PR, if you like, and 3 things that are almost you'd be better not to do PR than to do this type of PR. Is there 3 good and 3 bad that you could share?
Okay. So first thing is being proactive. So have a plan, think about all the things we've discussed today, and set out your strengths. What could you focus on to really get you out there? The second thing is, if you are going to work with a PR freelancer or agency, if you've got a budget, try to stretch it out as long as possible. So say you've got, I don't know, let's just take £10,000.
Yeah.
Spread it out over a year if you can, as opposed to spending it all in 3 months' time. Because some people think, well, if you go all guns blazing, and just like, let's just, hit here, and we'll do it all really quickly so there's more, more noise. That doesn't really work most of the time. Again, it depends on.
That's probably more advertising than PR.
It is. And if you're a big company, you've got a huge budget and you can do like the Super Bowl and then this and, then yes, you can create a lot of awareness. But for most smaller businesses, that's not going to happen. And so I think what I like is the drip effect. So a little bit every month, slowly but surely will again yield better return on investment. Then just doing it in 3 months' time. So what else can I share?
Who would be a great example as a brand that people would be able to resonate with of really good PR?
Oh, there's so many. I think, have a look at your sector and see. That's a good piece of research to do yourself, is who do you admire?
Right.
Who's standing out in your opinion, in your sector? And, a lot of companies will think, yes, but I can do it bigger or better. It's like, okay, great. But have a look and see what they're doing already.
Yeah.
And what can you, again, not copy, but what activities are they doing that you can do in your own way?
Yeah.
And so, there's so many brands, from those who are award winning, like let's look at Joseph Valente, he's had so many successes and, sometimes it hasn't always worked, but, he picks himself up again and he is driven to success.
I think, did you help him get into the Forbes 30 under 30 as well? Which is a great accolade, and that will stay with you. I mean, that's the other thing about good PR, I guess. Advertising is a moment in time. PR can stay with you for decades.
Absolutely, and it's just one of those things that while you're a Forbes 30 under 30, it's meaningful.
Yeah.
And so there's plenty of awards out there that are also meaningful. And so again, have a look at those and see what could you enter, because those you can do yourself, right? You put yourself forward.
Yeah, and I used to judge some retail awards, and just even the way it's presented, people would send in photos of their shop, let's say, and maybe the shelves weren't full at the time, or it was just a bunch of photos, and then the next person who had put themselves forward had it on a proper display board, all professionally mounted, and photos were great, and it shouldn't just be about the presentation, but it made a big difference when you were a judge, how easy it was to consume, to see, to appreciate the effort they'd put in.
Absolutely.
But what was really clear is very few people ever won awards if they didn't put themselves in for them.
They won't. And that comes back to, having a real passion for your business, for what you do, and again, being helpful. So, that person entering the award, they were being helpful to the judges, because the more you help and provide that clarity, it's going to come back tenfold, because if people understand who you are and what you do, they're much more likely then to, again, buy your product or buy your service or work with you.
And see you as a professional.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do people contact you?
They can contact me via LinkedIn. I'm on there as Alison Shadrack Brown, and my company is Adia PR. They can also contact our website, so it's adiapr.co.uk.
And that's ADIA.
ADIA, yes.
Fantastic. Well, certainly I know that people pick up on the PR that I've done. I know the importance of it. I've worked with many brands who are the Coca-Colas that, despite being the biggest in the world in their product sector, still are the biggest spenders of PR. So I know it's important. And the reverse of that to me is I see so many businesses who are amazing at what they do, and they have customers that are raving fans, but they're not sharing that fandom or the degree to which those customers rave about them with other customers. So their light really is hidden under a bushel. I really appreciate your time today. If you've enjoyed that, please like, subscribe and share. And we look forward to seeing you on another episode of Success is a System soon.